Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Sydney Fernandez Nixon, who is a professional actress. Sydney, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine. I read into the bio. I saw about schooling. I saw about, obviously you're an actress as well. You're living out in LA right now. I want to kind of get a lot of that information for the listeners today. But, one of the first things I want to kind of, get from you is, and have a better understanding of is, right now, currently you're living in LA, but kind of to give us a little bit more of that background, where you grew up and, how you made it to LA.
This is the $1,000,000 question every time someone asks me, where are you from? I'm like, oh, that's a very loaded question. So I'm a gypsy. I'll say that because I don't really necessarily claim one place, but then I do. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic and was there until I was 13 years old. Then my family relocated to New Jersey, North New Jersey, to be very specific, not confused with South Jersey. And that's what I claim.
Okay, represent.
That's what I claim that I'm from when it comes to the States. And then I lived there for 9 years. Then I went to college there, high school there. When I graduated from college, I relocated with my job to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you're probably wondering why? What's there other than the Steelers? Well, Pittsburgh has a lot of really good engineering companies, which is what I went to college for. So I lived there for another 9 years. And while I was in Pittsburgh, I was also acting. I did acting my whole life, but I never did it in front of a camera. I was mostly theater. When I was in Pittsburgh, I started to kind of go in a little bit more into the film industry. And then I felt like it was time for me to grow that more. Very passionate about the arts. And it's not necessarily the career that your parents um, say, yay, we're excited for you to go to college to get a theater degree. So that was also a struggle that I had to grow out of as an adult, the not trying to please other people. So anyway, when I was in Pittsburgh, I worked both careers for a while, and then I decided, I want to focus on acting. So I relocated to Los Angeles 4 years ago.
Okay, so you was moving around a lot.
Yes,
Now,
and a little bit of everything in my heart from all of those places.
Now, how did it feel, coming to America? Leaving DR, leaving that culture, leaving that community. The Latin community is very strong, very, family oriented. How did it feel to, come into the States at that point in time?
Well, my parents had lived in the States in the 60s, and both of my older siblings were born here. And then they decided to move back to the island, and my middle sister and I were born there. So I was always exposed to the culture just for like vacations and things like that. But when we moved, well, I'll give you like a breakdown. Like, first of all, academically in the island, I was so much more advanced than I was here when it came to math and science. I was 13 going into high school. And, the shock of feeling like I was being put back, like they tried to put me back because of my age. And I was tested several times to make sure that I was at the academic level of high school. But also the shock of how schools here, they don't necessarily they don't look after immigrants. So high school for me was an adjustment. Language wise, it really wasn't as much because I was studying English in the Dominican Republic, so I adjusted quickly. But I also was in a Latino heavy area, so a lot of people spoke Spanish. So that made it easy. But for me, the temperature, the way people interact with each other, the weather was an adjustment. The interaction with people was definitely an adjustment. The fact that school was much longer, like I was in school all day. Like in Dominican Republic, I was done by 1, And then I had friends and I would do other activities and I would do a bunch of things. And then I came here and I was basically going to school from early morning to like 3. By the time I got home, it was dark and cold and it was pretty depressing. I didn't really like my entire first year. And then my parents switched me high schools sometime in November. So that made it even worse for me to like,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Transition. Yeah, that transition might be, you was
Mhm.
already transitioning before. Now
Yeah.
the transition again midway through, obviously that's
Mhm.
definitely a
Right.
hard one. How did you feel about like the culture, shock? Like, were you guys settled at, when you guys obviously came into the States, did you feel like you had the same, like you had people that looked like you, spoke your language? Did you feel like you were alone?
Well, when because my parents went to New Jersey and we were in a very heavy Dominican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Colombian, Ecuadorian, like because we were close to New York, it was more of a melting pot. But before I ended up there, my family was going to finally settle there. But while my parents found an apartment, I was in upstate New York, or kind of upstate. It was Peekskill, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not New York City. That's New York.
Yep.
Like,
Big difference, listeners.
yeah, yeah, New York. And then the rest is kind of country. Um, and there, I remember, so when I came here, I was placed in the ESL program. And I was in the ESL program, English as a second language. And when I started high school in Peekskill, it was only English and history, ESL, but the teacher didn't speak Spanish because the Spanish population was very small. And everything else, I was in regular classes with all the other kids that had been here and knew each other since grammar school. So I felt like I totally didn't fit in. Up there weren't many Dominicans. So for them, at that time, I wasn't 100% aware of how this country views my skin and my outer looking. For me, I came from a place where everybody looks like a mixture of something,
True.
right? Coming here, I wasn't aware of the confusion I create in this country, right? You're Latina, but you look black, or you look mixed, but like, so at that time, that was something I wasn't aware of. I was only there for 2 months, and then they pulled me out and they put me in North Bergen, New Jersey, where it was everybody spoke Spanish. So that culture shock there, it was more so feeling like I was out of a clique because everybody knew each other for so long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When it came to culturally how I felt. But I will say I was very fortunate that I went to a place that had diversity also in New Jersey, coming down to New Jersey. Dominicans are not unicorns, a lot of people that look like me. So it was never a question because living across the river from Manhattan, Washington Heights, where like it's an extension of my country,
Mm-hmm.
um, I wasn't a unicorn. I so I felt like I assimilated to the country. However, surprisingly, 9 years later, when I relocated to Pittsburgh, it was like an entirely different cultural adjustment that I thought after 9 years of being in this country, I was going to be used to. And that's where my physical appearance became a thing that I couldn't understand, you know? I would get questions as to where is Dominican Republic? What part of Puerto Rico is that? But like your Spanish is Fernandez. I mean, your last name is Fernandez, but you don't look Mexican, or you speak
Oof.
Spanish. Like, oh, where are you from? Because you don't look Latina. And, those Midwest questions.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Especially because some of those individuals haven't even traveled to the Caribbean
Mhm,
and seeing what it looks like, the beauty,
mhm,
of your country and all the various different countries in the Caribbean.
right.
They probably read about it, they see some pictures and like some travel guides, but they probably have
Yeah.
never traveled out there. And not saying that these people are ignorant, in any way, but
Right.
or come across that way, but sometimes we have to educate, to kind of give
Yes.
them a little bit more of an understanding and kind of step back from just thinking that everyone's supposed to know our culture. that
Yes.
everyone is supposed to be accepting of our culture and understand
Mm-hmm.
that, this culture does this, or we're known for this, or something along those lines. So
Yeah.
I could only imagine the amount of conversations over and over and over that you had to have. You had to have a significant amount of patience, to have those types of conversations. And
Yeah.
more importantly, you had to kind of, have a really strong center to have that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
because after a while it could take a toll on you.
Yeah, and I feel like the first year of me living in Pittsburgh, I feel like everyone takes some type, like the first year of you anywhere takes a cultural adjustment. Even within the states, this country's so big that if you move from LA to New York, you're gonna take that first year to adjust that to that new culture. And as an immigrant, I'm still adjusting to things. I talk to people that are my age that, I've been in this country now for 20 something years, and like I still cannot relate to people my age about the music they listened to when they were growing up, the things that are um, classics that I'm like, I didn't really, that's not what I'm used to. And sometimes I still feel like a little like I'm missing out sometimes, or like an outsider. Um, but like you said, sometimes it takes, just like I take initiative to get to know, these things. I take the time to explore, I mean to teach. But in Pittsburgh, I um I wanted to move because it was just too much. It was too much for me to not even have Spanish radio. And I said, as soon as I finish my master's, I'm out. And somehow I was interviewed on a radio station, a college radio station, for the engineering, like the Hispanic Engineering Organization. And when I was there, I was like, you know what? Maybe I can make the radio show. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to use the part that I like about the media
And your
and
culture.
and my culture.
Yeah.
And maybe I can be the one to bring it, because so many people would come to Pittsburgh with the same feeling. And I was like, man, we're just a bunch of people that are just not happy with how it is culturally here. And I said, well, it would be nice if we had this. It would be nice if we had that. And I was like, you know what? But nobody's doing it. So let me do it. And before I walked out of the radio station, I spoke to the program director, and I said, okay, if I do a bilingual radio show. And
Mm,
the reason
okay.
why I wanted it to be bilingual was because I wanted it to be similar to what I grew up in New York City, which everything was bilingual. But at the same time, I knew my audience didn't speak Spanish only. A lot of people loved going to salsa night, but didn't know a lick of Spanish. You know, they enjoy the music
And they love the moves.
and they love the moves, but they did not understand the culture, the diversity, the pride that we had. So they said yes to the radio show. So I actually took a negative and turned it into an opportunity. And my radio
Congratulations.
show, thank you. And like, for me that was a very difficult time where I was struggling with, did I pick the right career? Did I am in the right city? What am I doing? And that helped me help other people um figure out their own as well.
A lot of self doubt at that point in time.
Uh-huh.
And especially when you're doing it on your own,
Hmm.
and really trying to represent a culture and making sure you
Right.
don't miss anything, because obviously,
Hmm.
that's when, people miss out on some valuable information. And
Right.
then, your voice is being heard by hundreds and hundreds of people. Now, you
Hmm.
obviously in Pittsburgh, you're doing this engineering thing. Like, what got you into engineering?
My parents said you got to have a career that you're gonna be well set. Very like, again, that's a cultural thing. Like, people don't understand that. Like, Latinos would instill like, what's a career? What's a real career? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Anything else is like, how are you gonna make money out of that? So even though I was always into the arts when I was little, my parents didn't fully support an acting career. So I was good with math, I was good with science. It's like, I'll just go with that. Um, so, I mean, I do love having my engineering career. Don't get me wrong, I still use it. But I feel like a lot of the times we how can I say, we limit ourselves to think that we could only do one thing.
Mm.
Um, and I've come to learn that, like, no, we could do multiple things. You just have to shift the focus from it's for me to it's to help.
And now with the whole thing of you just with this engineer, you mentioned the whole thing about you still do it. Is it
Mhm.
something that you're doing after college, after you graduated and stuff, that you're still utilizing your engineering degree? Do you go back to your school and, help out, informing like that Latin community about your journey and what's going on?
Well, I did, and for the first 8 years after my eight, yeah, eight and change, after I graduated, I worked as an engineer, and then with the companies that I worked with, I would go back to the high schools, I would go back to the colleges, I would go to conferences as a recruiter. My main focus was to go and like expose kids and young adults to the opportunities of being in the STEM field, because a lot of the times, my parents were really gun ho about it, but I come from a family that has a lot of engineers. But many, many times, especially immigrants, we are not exposed to the exact same opportunities that everyone else is. When I was in high school, my guidance counselor said to me that I was not going to go further than community college
Mm.
because I had ESL classes, you
Wow.
know?
Wow.
And then they create the education system in this country is so different. They created this entire ESL program where like there's 5 levels before years of high school. And then none of the ESL credits apply to college. So you're being set for to fail or to fall behind from the beginning. You come here, you have the language barrier, so then they place you in a class where it's going to help you, but at the same time they want you in that program because the schools get money from it. So as immigrants, we're already falling behind, just and we half the times we come from countries where our education is far more advanced. So I had to fight my school district to get out of ESL my second year, and I still had to take college classes when I was in high school on Saturdays.
This is just what you just said was very deep. Obviously when you're coming up and you need support. When
Yeah.
you come into the States, when you feel like you're I don't want to say an outcast, but you feel like you don't fit in and you don't
Mhm.
have a supportive team around you.
Yeah.
That definitely makes it hard for anyone trying to like really
Mhm.
grow or even elevate themselves or even have the mindset to be like, okay, it's a little rough now, but in due time, I'll be in a
Right.
better place.
Well, a
And
lot of
so
the times is lack of information, to be honest. So I would, because I knew what I struggled with, I would always go back to high schools and colleges and let them know, hey, these are the opportunities that you can get. These are the scholarships. This is how you can do it. These are the schools that you can get into. This is how you can approach. And even after the ones that graduated college, I'll say, like, this is how you can approach to further your career, get a master's degree or get an education or, get a job or do both. And like many companies, would pay and like just like give information on how to be successful and how to deal with some of the barriers that you do come across in corporate America, especially being an immigrant, especially speaking a different language, especially looking different. um, I took a break from engineering for 5 years when I moved to LA, and I am actually going back to do both careers again as of tomorrow. I'm still full time acting because it's LA and I can do that. And one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is the fact that we can work from home now.
that is true.
So I am blessed with a job that they brought me in. They created an opportunity for me to come back into the workforce, and I can work from my house, or if I'm doing an acting job, I can also multitask. Um, so I feel like it's important for people like me, like us, like to be represented in as many fields as possible.
Mm. And now, with all these life lessons, so obviously coming from DR, going into Jersey, going into school, and
Mhm.
now obviously starting to move. Obviously, you moved to LA. What are some of like the life lessons you've learned on your journey? To kind of help you become the actress that you are today.
Compassion. compassion, and grace. Understanding that sometimes people say things and do things out of ignorance, and it's not necessarily their fault. I learned that from not being upset about people being confused about me. I put myself in their shoes and I understand, what? It's not that they're trying to be mean, it's probably because they just don't know better. Um, and, you know, having compassion for other people, understanding that other people's paths can be different, and having patience to, like, there's one thing to help by telling people what to do, and another thing is by exposing them to things and allowing them to form their own path. you know um so having compassion for people, having patience, and having the understanding, it sounds small, but it takes you so far when you are dealing with, you're coming with a mentality and a culture, and then you're encountered with a massive country where every corner thinks different, and you have to assimilate to it. So you have to be quick to adjust. And the only way that you can adjust is by trying to be understanding of this new culture and what they do know and what they don't know.
And with you taking up the acting, I'm obviously engineering and acting. That's like left and right. That's like
Yes.
night and day. What was like the turning point, to make you kind of pursue the acting like more full time? I think
Um,
that 2017, if I'm correct, around that
yes,
time period.
2017. Yeah. I had been doing it for a while, and not everything is peachy. The engineering industry had taken a toll on me. I had encountered a lot of isms, ageism, sexism, racism. I almost felt like I was fighting a lot, in a white older man dominated industry. I felt I was always kind of fighting to have my space. And I'll say, like, I was good at what I was. The issue was dealing with people, and it was a mental health issue at this point. It was taking such a big toll. And I felt like I just wasn't in it anymore. And then with that came the fact that I always had the passion for acting. And I felt like if I didn't do it more, I was going to regret it. I can always go back to being an engineer because that degree is never going to go away. But I felt like if I didn't pursue what I also wanted to do, I was going to resent myself.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people just don't want to live with, or they don't even think about too much. They're like, you know what, I'll just put it off, I'll just hold off, and then before you know it, they look back and they're like, you know what, that could have been me. I should have made that choice. I should have done that. So you obviously have done the engineering thing, and now you're doing the acting thing. Like, how do you implement your culture, or how do you find ways of showcasing that culture in the acting industry? Are you say auditioning for more Latino roles, or are you going to auditions, speaking proudly of your culture, so that you're bilingual? Like, how do you implement that?
Oh, you almost make it sound like I have options. We get
Well,
called in.
I know we create our options if that was the case. I know sometimes,
Yeah.
you might walk up into an audition and be like, I'm here to speak this role. You're slating, and then all of a sudden you say it in Spanish. You're like, wait, I didn't even know she speaks Spanish.
Yes, yes,
Like, because I'm
yes,
saying, because like you said, they think of you
yes.
African American. They're like, oh my gosh, she's Latina. Okay, hi.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to acting, of course, I am super proud. I am super proud to represent being Latina, and I am so excited at the fact that Hollywood has slowly but surely caught on to the fact that Latinos look like me. So there's so many roles right now that are casting Dominicans that look like me, or just Latinos in general, like Afro Latinos in general. Because the reason why there's such a big ignorance in the entire country about certain topics is because how do we learn? School. Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, we're not at school, but TV is the main source of what we see. And if every time you see Latinos represented on TV is Sofia Vergara or J-Lo, you see me and you live in like Wisconsin, you're going to be like, well, but you don't look like the Latinos I'm used to seeing on TV, you know? So that is changing big time, which is giving me the opportunity to go out for so many roles. And I'm so excited. Um, except for when I have to play like a role from a different country and I have to, for example, I was auditioning for a role and I was going to be a Cuban person and I had to agree that the Cuban coffee was better than Dominican coffee. That hurt a little bit, you
Oh
know.
wow.
Because I said
Wow.
I'm like Cuban. Ugh, it's acting. But I say that, in a very happy way to know that yeah, opportunities are coming so much more. And the fact that nationwide we're having this push for diversity everywhere and opening the doors for what Afro Latinos are. It's like the best time for me to be in the industry. I get so many auditions. I'm always busy, especially for commercials. Like if you stop and you look at the TV right now in commercials, 5 out of 7 commercials are going to be people that look like me. And that's beautiful,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I could be anything. I can be, I mean, my mom is a white Dominican, my dad is a black Dominican, therefore you got this, right? But I can also, I'm pretty ambiguous for, the entire country. So it's just beautiful to see that. And then when it comes to acting, I love that I did turn down jobs that were very stereotypical Latina, maid, sassy, dumb. I don't do those. I've turned them down, and it's actually kind of annoying that they still exist.
Mm.
But the industry is definitely taking a turn in that, and it's very exciting to see.
I'm glad that you're kind of, taking that initiative, not only just do acting, but like kind of showcasing that you don't have to pick those roles. Like,
Mhm.
no, like, as you, it's the industry, sometimes,
Yeah.
especially being an immigrant as well, too. You're like, you know what, I got to take these opportunities that come in my
Mhm.
way. But then it degrades you.
Yeah.
It brings down your culture, and obviously
Mm.
it brings down your intelligence as an individual. And granted,
Yes.
obviously, everyone's getting a check at the end of the day. Sometimes the check is way more important than, you representing your culture in the way you
Mhm.
should be representing it.
Yeah.
Some people say I'm just acting, but it's still a representation.
Mhm.
Someone had to depict, you're depicting a certain type of image about your culture.
Yes.
And I know it's hard sometimes to see those things on TV. As a mom as well too. I know you probably have you have a daughter, son,
Yes. One of each.
one of each. Oh, you got
And
your hands full,
you
girl.
see them. This is how I my kids work with me.
Mhm.
No, they literally do. They because of the big push, they always look for families, and because we look very ambiguous in the world of what they want, they work with me. But it's also like they don't give me much space.
Mom, we need you. Well, shout out to you for juggling all that, engineering, being a mom, and obviously that the acting. Like, as obviously you're a mom in the industry currently working. Like, who are some of your like your role models that you might look up to right now? I know your kids look up to you as a role model. But like, who do you look up to?
I mean, if you ask them, they may not say that. My daughter may look up to herself because she's growing up in a culture that I'm creating that's totally different than the one I grew up in.
True.
That's it's again, we're still developing that. Um, I would say I look up to when it comes to actors, I'll say Viola Davis because she's not afraid to look ugly on camera as long as she can give you the emotion of the role. And I say that because as an actress, I every role I play, I bring in a little bit of me in. And with that comes the struggles we've gone through, the mental health that we've had to that we work on every day. And when I see actors that are not that it's you're not giving the actor, I mean the character, the chance to shine through you because you're busy about being you. And with her, I feel like she's just very, the emotion is always felt, you know? And I admire that. I admire that 100%. Um, I like this actress, and I guess in college I did some theater classes because, like I said, it never left me. And Emma Thompson, British actress, just because she does Shakespeare so well. And because she's very versatile. And again, I'm very attracted to actors that are like regular, everyday people that just do such a good job at portraying these people and bringing the emotions out, you know?
So you take on a lot of roles like that's good. That's good. It's, I know sometimes it's hard to find a good role model. Sometimes, especially in the industry,
Yeah.
everyone wears multiple hats, and sometimes you don't even know what hat they're wearing at that point in time. But to know
Yeah.
that there's someone that you constantly know that's like been consistent
Mhm.
in the roles that they play or the way they come across on that screen obviously
Mhm.
makes a big difference. Now,
Yeah.
I read in the your bio about this whole accent. You got a whole bunch of accents you could do.
Mm,
Could
not
you
many,
talk?
no. No.
Not that many. But this, could you talk to me a little bit more about this? I know you went to school for, you studied a little bit. Could you talk to me about this and let the listeners know, what
Uh,
is this all about?
okay, so when it comes to accents, well, I think my natural accent, depending on who's listening, say, oh, they'll pick up that it's a Jersey, New York accent. Other people they think is a Spanish accent. I think it's more the regional accent. However, living in Pittsburgh, I was kind of forced to. They would say like, "Can you do that, but without an accent?" And I'm like, I thought I thought I was saying it without an accent. Or they would want me to go for roles, but they're like, "Can you do a Southern accent?" And I'm like, "Ha- I'm still struggling with neutral over here." So I studied the International Phonetics Alphabet. Now, what that, I speak French as well, not as fluent as I used to, but the International Phonetics Alphabet allows you to learn the sounds as opposed to the words, and you can do any accent from any country. Like, for example, if you want to do a British accent and the O, right? And then you learn how to, like, Latinos, we speak right here at the tip of the, like, against our teeth. Regular English is back here, right? On my throat, the Midwest English. And then British is like more down here. And I'm not going to do it now because no. But
I think
I
it's time for us to do a little improv city. I don't know, girl.
I don't know. I may not be all that great at it. I've been a little bit out of it. I would have to like literally get systematic with it and sit down and write it phonetically, you
Yes,
know.
and I've heard about it. I have a couple of dear friends that are actors and actresses, and
Mhm.
they said that this is something that they have practiced over and over and
Mhm.
over in order to get those roles. And they break down how
Yeah.
accents are actually
Yeah.
formed by people. I mean, and these are individuals that have no connection to, like, some, for example, being from someone from the South, but then
Right.
give them an hour or so,
Mhm.
they could have that accent
Yeah,
because
and you have to write it phonetically because there's certain words that, like, certain, just one or two like vowel sounds that sound different, that when you say it in that sentence, um it totally can surprise you. Now, there's probably parts here and there that you can pick up that you're like, you're not from there. Maybe like the choice of words, like,
true.
if you're doing like a New York, New Jersey accent, just ask me to say coffee, you're automatically going to hear it, right? Because I don't hear anything other than coffee. I mean, when people say it different, I don't hear the difference. Um, but when it comes to what I use more regularly that I don't necessarily have to practice would be different accents in Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of roles, a lot of times they want me to go in and have a Cuban accent or a Puerto Rican accent or a neutral Spanish accent, or a Dominican accent, which, it's getting more regular. Those are the accents that I use more often, that I don't have to write phonetically to do.
Well,
And
shout out to
then
that.
go ahead. I mean, I could do them in Spanish, but like, I mean, speaking in English, what do you want me to say? That's, this is how Dominicans talk, you know?
Hey, I remember growing up in the Bronx in Washington Heights. That's exactly how I
Hmm.
would walk right in the stores, and it would sound just like that. And it's amazing to know that a culture has a certain sound, right? Like
Yes.
music, and wherever you go, like you would hear that sound and the way that people would speak and be like, okay, I know I could just tell you you're Dominican, but you're Dominican from the Bronx. You're Dominican from Washington
Yeah.
Heights.
This guy
And
from the Bronx. Yeah.
you just be like, and you'll find out where people come from just from the way they speak. And
Hmm.
I think that's a very beautiful thing because that shows that the culture is that strong in that area. And
Hmm.
it's grown so much into, and people have traveled all
Yeah.
out, but you could always be like, well, you're Dominican from this part of the country. And they're like,
Oh,
oh yeah,
yeah.
how'd you know? And they're like,
They would,
yeah.
if I go to Manhattan right now, they'll be like, "Oh, you're from Santo Domingo," and I'm like, "Yes," because they could tell from my body shape. I don't know. It's weird. We can. It's like, "Oh, you're a little light skin. You must be from Santo Domingo. No, you're from Santiago. Oh, your family's from Santiago. Oh, yeah, for sure." It's
Mm,
yeah.
hey, the culture is real. The culture is real. Now, if you had to change, I mean, if you had the power, let's think about this right now. If you had the power to change something in the industry currently, right now, what
Mhm.
would it be? Or improve? Matter of fact, I mean, you don't have to change it. Say, let's say we want to improve something.
Hold on.
Oh, girl, I
I
heard
would
some
like to
paper.
change.
Let's call the president right now.
I would like to change. Like you asked me for that. It's a list. I got it right now. No, you know what? This industry has so many things that sometimes I love, sometimes I dislike. I would love for the industry to treat actors like with a little bit more humanity sometimes. Um, you don't realize that sometimes we're treated like props. In the sense of like our time is not as valued as everyone else's time. An actor's life is tough. You have 10-hour days, and that's your regular. You know how the people have 8-hour days, 10-hour days is a regular. You could do 12, 13, and that's still normal. You have no work life balance. Um, when it comes to audition, hold on, let me sit back on this one. When it comes to auditions, we get called in, and the pandemic made it so amazing that we can audition from home. Also, it made it real easy for them to send you auditions with like 3 hours before it's due. It's a little frustrating because we're going to complain about it. We're going to do it because we want the job, but we're going to complain while we do it because it feels a little inconsiderate for us. Now, when it comes to the industry as a whole, I I would like to say that it's not necessarily something that I want to change because it's already changing. I kind of want to say, like, I want to see it more. And it's the openness to the cultural awareness of the different people that live in this country, that look different, that have different cultures, that belong here, that are never portrayed on TV as we belong here. So we're getting there. We're working on that, but it's still I don't
It's
want to
work,
curse, but
yeah.
like half
half
as
half booty, yes.
yeah, half booty effort right now. You know what I'm saying? So like props to the industry. I'm gonna say that that's positive, but I would like for that to continue to grow. We're obviously all from different countries, but if they ask you where are you from, I'm gonna say I'm right now more from this country because I grew up here and I made my career here, made my adult life here. And to feel like sometimes I'm treated like I'm an outsider, this is an immigrant's country. Why are we not embracing that more in the media? That's where it all starts. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying throw, like Disney now is doing all these like I went to the movie theater, side note, and we were watching The Addams Family, but there was a preview for a Disney movie about a Latino family, and they were Afro Latinos, and I was like, yes. But then the whole theme is about them being brujas. I'm like, well, we gotta relate something Afro anything with brujeria. I mean, I know we have it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's kind of true, but I'm just saying, can you make them a lawyer? Can you make them
Could you make them an engineer? Let's talk about that, right?
right? Make
You
them like
know,
you
you
make,
know.
the fantastic. Was it the Incredibles?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Can
yeah.
they be the Afro Latino ones? You know what I'm saying?
And this is the world that we live in. You know, there are some changes, and I feel like there's been a lot more
Mhm.
um, appreciation for different cultures. You know, through the many years or the recent years, I feel like it's getting out there where more and more people are starting to like appreciate other cultures. You
Yeah.
know, I remember when National Hispanic Month was when I was growing up. It wasn't like in the forefront, right? But then now with people having a voice, social media being so strong, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of things of other people's cultures have obviously come to the forefront in a good way, and represented for all the positive things that it could bring to other cultures. So I'm very
Yeah.
appreciative to kind of see that. I'm glad that someone like yourself is utilizing your culture every single day within the profession that you're in. Now, as a mom, like
Whichever
how you just
profession.
oh, sure, whatever profession. I'm just still curious on like how are you juggling all this?
I think I am wired to strive under multitasking. I'll tell you, I feel like I accomplished more when I was at a full time job at a desk, and then I would get out and I would do the radio show, I would do acting, and I would do the mom thing. I felt like because I had so much to do, I was so organized and I never left anything for later. The 5 years that I have been just acting, I feel like I had too much free time, which I feel like I wasn't as effective, if that makes sense. But I'm also wired a little different. I need to sleep more, if that makes
And
sense.
I mean, you're in the industry, so it's definitely maybe that's a part of your 5 year goal. What is something that what do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Obviously, hopefully, sleeping a little bit more, but anything directly?
Um, I would love to be a series regular. No, let me go back. I will be a series regular on one of these many shows that are coming up that are bringing up our culture. Um, and because I've auditioned for them, so I mean, just come on, bring it in. That's what I would love to do. I would also love. I love California, so I see myself being here as well. And to be honest, I also feel like on the side, like on the quiet, which would be like my engineering career, which is not the one that you Google and find. Um, I actually do miss doing outreach, panels, going to high schools and going to colleges and talking about my experience with the young adults that are thinking about the different paths that they can go in life, and not necessarily to push them to be an engineer, but to let them know that it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to start over at any point. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself so early. Also letting them know that if they want to go to college, this is where you go to get money. I didn't have that. I mean, my mom did, but a lot of my friends didn't. And student debt is not the thing too.
Oh, well, you've definitely kind of given a lot of great information, that the listeners, could obviously gravitate to. And I appreciate, you're obviously, taking the time to kind of express that story, just coming from DR to where you are now currently, juggling being a mom, being an actress, and how you kind of like utilize your Latina culture, your roots to kind of apply that every single day within your profession, whether it be engineering or whether it be, being an actress. And I think if anyone's listening right now, something that they could definitely pull away from is just that your mindset of like not giving up. continuously pushing through despite the odds. You mentioned in this conversation, you mentioned about how some people weren't as supportive, in that transitional period for you. And to see you at the age of 13 to where you are now, and you're still pushing, like those individuals should really think about what they said back then.
I
So
mean, they were my parents, and now they're like super proud. I'm like,
I know, but you ain't talking about your teachers. You ain't talking about other people that try to hold you back in school. When you came
yes,
over,
yes,
it just goes to show that as immigrants, as people,
yeah,
if you want something in life, you just really got to go for it. So
yeah.
I commend you and thank you so much for taking time to be on the show today and really showcasing and sharing all that information with us. We'd love to have you back on the show at some point in time to kind of talk. I know you said something about being a panelist. Hopefully we could, the Zaka community, we're going to continuously grow it and hope to have you be a panelist at that point in time on one of those upcoming events. Is there any last words you want to say to the listeners before we take off?
I mean, I would say, in case you forgot today, be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you are. Like you said, 20 years ago, I would have never thought that I am where I am today. Taking it one day at a time and just being proud of who I am, being proud of who you are. It's what's going to get you through the day.
Okay. Well, congratulations again on all your success. I wish you nothing but the best. And I know the listeners do as well too. If you want to hear more stories to our community, if you want to hear more stories like Sydney, check us out on ZakaConnect.com or follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcast. Again, Sydney, thank you for being a part of the show. And I look forward to seeing your career in the many years that you have.
Thank you for having me.